समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। अजमपि जनियोगं प्रापदैश्वर्ययोगात् अगति च गतिमत्तां प्रापदेकं ह्यनेकं विविधविषयधर्मग्राहिमुग्धे क्षणानां प्रणतभयविहन्तृब्रह्म यत्तन्नतोऽस्मि। अतीतः पन्थानं तव च महिमा वाङ्मनसयोरतद्व्यावृत्यायं चकितमभिधत्ते श्रुतिरपि सकस्य स्तोतव्यः कतिविधगुणः कस्य विषयः पदे त्वर्वाचीने पतति न मनः कस्य न वचः। अथ पञ्चमः प्रश्नः। अथ हैनं शैब्यः सत्यकामः पप्रच्छ स यो ह वै तत् भगवन्मनुष्येषु प्रायणान्तमोङ्कारम् अभिध्यायीत कथमं वावसः तेन लोकं जयतीति तस्मै स होवाच एतद्वै सत्यकाम परं च ब्रह्म यदोङ्कारः तस्माद्विद्वानेतेनैव आयतनेनैकतरमन्वेति स यद्येकमात्रमभिध्यायीत स तेनैव संवेदितस्तूर्णमेव जगत्यामभिसम्पद्यते तसृजो मनुष्यलोकम् उपनयन्ते स तत्र तपसा ब्रह्मचर्येण श्रद्धया सम्पन्नो महिमानमनुभवति। अत यदि द्विमात्रेण मनसि सम्पद्यते सोऽन्तरिक्षं यजुर्भिः उन्नीयते सोमलोकं स सोमलोके विभूतिम् अनुभूय पुनरावर्तते। यः यः पुनरेतं त्रिमात्रेण ओमित्येतेनैवाक्षरेण परं पुरुषमभिध्यायीत स तेजसि सूर्ये सम्पन्नः यथा पादोदरस्त्वचा विनिर्मुच्यते एवं ह वै स पाप्मना विनिर्मुक्तः स सामभिः उन्नीयते ब्रह्मलोकं स एतस्माज्जीवगणात् परात् परं पुरुषमीक्षते। तदेतौ श्लोकौ भवतः तिस्रो मात्रा मृत्युमत्यः प्रयुक्ताः अन्योन्यसक्ता अनविप्रयुक्तः क्रियासु बाह्याभ्यन्तरमध्यमासु सम्यक् प्रयुक्तासु न कम्पते ज्ञः ऋग्भिरेतं यजुर्भिरन्तरिक्षं सामभिर्यत्तत्कवयो वेदयन्ते तमोङ्कारेणैवायतनेनान्वेति विद्वान् यत्तच्छान्तमजरम् अमृतमयम् अभयं परं चेति। We are at the concluding portion of the fifth query. The very important how the seeker progresses through upasana and further by deeper contemplation. We are now going through the last two mantras of this section, fifth query, and in that the last one. their quotations and to support that whatever the teacher of Prashnopanishad is narrating his experience, it has to be supported by the Shruti or Vedic statement. So he is referring to the quotes which are in the Vedic literature, and these quotes are mantra 6 and 7. So when it is in line with the quotes, then his experience as narrated or the guidance becomes valid. Now, we were going through a very important process. Here, since Om is the symbol that represents the Parabrahma as well as Aparabrahma. The Aparabrahma can be reached by Upasana, and we have seen that how the first three letters of AUM, when contemplated isolatedly and together, one is able to reach the world of the Creator and also is able to go beyond. In the earlier 5 mantras give us the explanation that immediately beyond is Surya Loka, where first of all the contemplation of the M reaches him to the Creator, and from there he never returns. That is the first gain. As against the first two letters where they return for further progress. So here he doesn't return. That is the one thing. And from there he goes beyond the fourth level, and where he gets purified. He becomes sinless. And it is this status of his that takes him further to the higher lokas or the fields of experiences. Now, how it is harmonized from the upasana to the deeper contemplation, we are going through those portions at present, and the fifth para onwards, last time we have seen that the wise one reaches these and also that which is beyond. That was the concluding statement of fifth para. So here there are two levels of thinking or reflection. First is to go beyond the lower three lokas of experiences, Bhur Loka, Bhur Loka and Swar Loka as the totality. And here we can say the body, the pranas, the mind. Now Upasana, one important gain of Upasana is ability of the seeker through contemplation to merge with the total. If he is contemplating upon A, which stands for the physical body, then by contemplation, he becomes aware of the sum total of all physical bodies put together at the totality level, called as Virat. So he recognizes the presence of the totality and consider himself as a part of the totality. This gives him a larger vision. And when thus becomes aware of the totality and is in harmony with the totality, he immediately comes back to the same world and gets a higher progress. When he goes to the second level, he reaches Somaloka. There it is full of the prana force, where all the egos are maintained. this Somaloka, therefore, is called as Pitruloka, where all the Pitaras, either they are waiting for the next equipment, next physical body, but the egos are maintained there so that they can continue their journey as a jiva for their further experience. So this is Bhuvarloka in totality, and here it is the vital air sheath, the Pranamaya Kosha. After Annamaya, it is Pranamaya. So contemplating upon the vitality of the Pranamaya Kosha, he in his Upasana and rightly progressing, he is able to recognize the total prana force which is pervading all the three lokas in general, and that of prana force predominant in the Bhuvarloka. This Bhuvarloka is connecting the lower Bhurloka and the higher Swarloka, so that the egos or those individual carrying the sense of individuality, they are able to either go to heaven, the Swarloka, or come down to the earth, the Bhurloka. So this connecting link also helps them for their further gati or progress. So this, having recognized the totality of the prana force, he becomes humble and is in harmony with the totality. This is, he gains Somaloka and returns. But he returns with more potential for his mental progress. He further contemplates upon M and he reaches Swarloka or Swargaloka, and there he enjoys the heavenly bliss, maybe as a result of his upasana or his earlier deeds, and thereafter he does not return because it is upasana. If it is an ordinary journey of the jiva, then kshine punye martyalokam vishanti. So long as he has got the visa, or so long as he has got the meritorious tax as capital, he is allowed to enjoy the heaven. When that is exhausted, then he has to quit that and come back to the Bhurloka, where the science of religion will exhort him to undertake meritorious activities so that he can go to heaven and enjoy the heavenly bliss. So like this, it repeatedly goes on. But as a upasaka, one who is a seeker, he is contemplating Om as a symbol of his worship, and who has reached this Svargaloka, the third one, which is mind within us, and by the merit of upasana, he is able to recognize the total mind, called as Hiranyagarbha. This total mind he recognizes and then understands that he is only the part of the total mind, and this kind of harmony makes him progress further. In a sense, Hiranyagarbha is a state where the word Hiranya indicates a gold or a shine like a gold. So Hiranyagarbha is a total subtle body. All minds, sum total of all minds put together is called total mind and is otherwise termed as Hiranyagarbha. It is the regime of the creator. So the creator of this creation is total mind. And then he comes to know his part as a dreamer, how he also creates a little world of his own imagination. And then he understands the futility of that dream world and joins the totality of the mind, called as Hiranyagarbha. So this Hiranyagarbha, or the world of the creator, when he reaches there, that is a state where Hiranyagarbha means a creator and creator means a sankalpa. A sankalpa is the first thought, and this thought is with a shine. Therefore, this is the state that we have reached, which we discussed earlier, a light and a thought, prakasha and vimarsha. This is a important level where he reaches the thought which has a shine, meaning there he becomes aware that I am able to be conscious of thought because of the light of consciousness. This light shines there. Therefore, this is a state, we can say, that it is a state of sattva, the sattvic state, in which the consciousness, the light of consciousness manifests. In its, or in all its glory, the consciousness manifests in sattva. In rajas and tamas, it is not able to manifest fully. It has distortions, and therefore that is not useful for the seeker. Only when it is sattvic medium. Now, as far as the total mind is concerned, it is basically sattvic, and the prompt of the rajas or prana shakti helps him create, have a sankalpa. So a sankalpa rising in a total mind is the start of the creation. So now this is important in a sense. Earlier Bhurloka is predominantly tamasic, Bhuvarloka is predominantly rajasic, full of prana force, and Swarloka is predominantly sattvic. So in sattva medium only, the light of consciousness is manifest, and that manifestation we call it as self-effulgence. It is the effulgence of the light of consciousness. Now, light of consciousness is representing the self. Therefore, when he contemplates upon M, he reaches the world of the creator. Now, together, A, U, and M, when he contemplates upon, then he goes beyond the world of the creator. Beyond the world of creator is total intelligence. Total intelligence is all the individual, all the intellects put together becomes total intelligence. The total intelligence is really the blaze. We can call it like a resplendent sun. We can call like that. And it is indicated also that he reaches Surya Loka. After Hiranyagarbha, he reaches Surya Loka. In Hiranyagarbha, he never returns. But when practiced, what is to be practiced at that level of meditation? It is the thought with light. Or in spite of thought, is awareful of light. And this kind of concentration leads him to the total resplendence of light, which we can call it as the blaze, like a blaze of the sun. And this is compared, Swamiji has compared it with a white heat of meditation, where we saw that if he manages to stay steady at the level of light, negating the thought, then he reaches this Surya Loka, the next Loka, where there is a total effulgence. So now this total intelligence or total effulgence, now what is the difference between this Surya Loka and Hiranyagarbha? Hiranyagarbha is with Sankalpa, where the earlier Surya Loka is before the Sankalpa. Before Sankalpa rises, it is all blaze. After the Sankalpa, it is illumining the Sankalpa. Therefore, it is called that basically it is the light which envelops or pervades the sankalpa. So that's a small difference, but that difference makes really a great leap for the seeker, in as much as in this level or in this loka, the field of experience, where there is only the resplendence of consciousness before sankalpa, this remaining at this level steady, he sheds or drops all the sins, because this kind of the silence that he is able to steady himself in does not allow any element of disturbance. Now vasanas is the first disturbance in this silence, and these vasanas are simply dropped or burnt down in the steady contemplation on the resplendent consciousness. So earlier we have seen what is effulgence at one level. Effulgence is a shine in the thought, whereas this resplendence is before even the thought rises. It is all blaze, and practicing to steady there, one becomes free from sins, free from vasanas. Now this is the level, most important level, and this is the most important in a sense. We are now entered into the upper three lokas. By entering into the Surya Loka or entering into the fourth level, first three levels, Bhur Bhuvasva, Swarloka, it is creator's world, Satvik, and we have got consciousness manifest in the medium of Sattva. Transcending this Loka, that is Hiranyagarbha, he reaches total intelligence, which is a blaze and which is equal to Maharloka. And this blaze is really connecting the lower three lokas and higher three lokas. The main achievement of the seeker here is that he is disconnected from the lower lokas, which are perishable, and he is now entered into the higher lokas, and the first one being Janoloka. Janoloka is equivalent to endless bliss. It is the total sense of fullness and completeness that the jiva comes to be aware of as his own nature. Now this is the important level. This is the great potential. This is the great power with which the creation gets impetus, first in a blaze of consciousness as total intelligence, and then Hiranyagarbha, where the Sankalpa rises. So this is that Anandamaya Kosha. Ananda is the equivalent to Janaloka, and this Ananda is endless bliss. It is completeness or fullness, and the seeker at this level feels fully energetic, and he feels a sense of completeness. And this marks the beginning to his higher lokas. Now this we have to compare with our Omkar sadhana. We have seen AUM, first three levels, lower perishable lokas. Then together it reaches the Surya Loka, and there he gets purified. In the earlier Loka, there he doesn't return, therefore he continues further and enters the fourth one, where it is called Surya Loka. We are trying to reflect upon the portions of earlier 5 mantras. and trying to correlate this with the present mantra. So here in the present mantra, it is only said that Sa samabhihi yat kavayo vedayante. This is the only thing where he reaches Brahmaloka by means of the syllable Om. And then the wise one, thereafterwards the real course starts. The Upasana is over the moment the seeker crosses the three lokas and enters into a connecting loka called as Maharloka. Now this we have to apply it in our own individuality. Our physical body is Bhurloka. Our Pranamaya Kosh is Bhuvarloka, which connects the gross body and the subtle body. It is a connecting link. Then we go to Swarloka, which is Manomaya Kosha. Then in Manomaya Kosh, here it is said he goes to Somaloka first, immediately. So Manomaya Kosha, here now we have to revise our portions. Manomaya Kosha, there it is Somaloka or Pitruloka we have seen, and where the egos are present. In Manomaya Kosh, we have seen that the mind has a pool of thoughts, is a continuous flow of thoughts, and the prana force reflects in the pool of thought is called as ego or ahankar. This definition is very important, and this tells us how I, the ego, is always having an alliance with the mind. This ego and the mind, they form the unholy alliance which creates havoc in the individual's life. So the mind is already there, full of thoughts, and in the pool of thoughts, prana force reflects, and this reflection of prana force in the thoughts of the mind is called as ahankar or ego. This is a very important level that we have identified the place of ego, which is in the mind itself. Now this we have come up to the level of the somaloka in the mind. Then we go to the intellectual level where it is the connecting link there at total intelligence, and here it is the intellect with intelligence. So this is the fourth one which is connecting. Now intelligence is a connecting link between the lower three lokas, that is body, mind, intellect, and the higher three lokas, that is Satchit Ananda. So this is the link. So this link takes us first immediately to the endless bliss aspect. Now up to this we have so far discussed. Now this is very important aspect. Now the wise man, what wise man does further, what so far seeker has done, A, U, M, then together as Om, this is the fourth level. The fifth level, here it is described in the current paragraphs that are under discussion, that in the fifth level, the seeker reaches the, how to say, silence. Silence that is followed after Om chanting. Levels A, U, M. Isolatedly, 3 levels. Together, 4th level. Then followed by silence. That means when Om chanting ends in silence, so he becomes aware of the silence. Moment he becomes aware of the silence, he is pushed to the first loka in the higher three, and that is Janoloka, so to say there, which is equivalent to Ananda. So Sat, Chit and Ananda are the higher three lokas, in which the lowest one is Ananda, wherein he enters. He enters there because he has detected or he has become aware of the silence that follows. So far, all his contemplation was on the sound of Om. And it was said that all the results are finite or limited. Why? Because the sound has a beginning and sound has an end. Now, this so far, AUM, then Om together, all these four levels, it is all sound only, basically. And therefore, it is said that the results of this upasana are all finite or limited. But the wise man, what wise man does, he does that he practices Om with long meditations, including the silence that ends, that is the ending silence of Om chanting. So Om chanting ends in the silence. So he takes care of that silence also and contemplates upon that silence. And this marks a total revolution, like, and he is entered into the higher three lokas, and thereafterwards he proceeds further. But the Upasaka who reaches Hiranyagarbha, we saw there that by gradual evolution, or this level, what is called as the krama mukti. So that gradual level is for the seeker who was practicing first three. But the one who pursues through deep meditations on Om together, and next level is Om ending in silence. When these two levels are practiced, definitely it marks his entry into the higher, eternal, imperishable lokas. Lower lokas are continuously created and continuously destroyed. They are perishable lokas. He has already transcended them. He has entered into the connecting link of blazing consciousness called as total intelligence. And here correspondingly we have reached the intelligence at the intellect. Now this intelligence in the intellect is a connecting link between lower three, that is body, mind, intellect, because this intelligence goes up to the tip of our body, all over the body it goes, and it also connects to what is reflected, that is pure consciousness. Therefore, that pure consciousness links it further to the knowledge and ultimately to the Brahman. So this we have correlated with our individual seeker, and Upasana first makes him identify, tune up with the totality, with the Virat, and then he in between reaches Somaloka, then Hiranyagarbha, then Suryaloka. All these are gradual progresses, but once he has crossed the three lokas, enters into total intelligence, thereafterwards his steady progress continues. Now, the wise man. So up to this, we have covered the portions up to para number 7. This was required. This is a very critical or the subtler aspects of meditation described here. Now, I want to share with you one very important thought, which Swamiji has indicated somewhere in the book of Meditation and Life. What he says, we are not discussing how to sit for meditation and all those details. We are not discussing. We are only detailing out the process of meditation and how the seeker evolves through that process. Now, what Swamiji says, as we are discussing on this meditation, or as we have started on our journey, suddenly we will discover that we have already reached the destination. See the statement. We have, moment we have a feeling that we have started a journey through right efforts, we may realize that we have already reached the destination. Meaning, no effort is involved in this at all. It is a question of understanding. And all these levels of A, U, M, then Om ending in silence, etc. These are our stages by which we have to evolve. And at this moment, when Vedanta says that you are, even at this moment, you are Brahman, it means that I am already Brahman, but by thought I have wandered away. The Maya has created the duality and hooked up my attention to the second one, and through this duality, Maya has created the multiplicity. You know, Dvaita and Nanatva, the duality and the multiplicity. Maya has taken care of that. And in the bargain, I got wandered away from my original place. And this wandering away is not real. It is only at the thought level. I am going along with the thought. Thought itself is Maya. Now I followed Maya, meaning I followed the thought. How thought is Maya? We have already seen that a wave rising on water is mithya. Wave does not have any independent existence, and whatever we say, point out the wave, there the top of the wave, middle of the wave, bottom of the wave, everywhere it is nothing but water. So when it is water, why call it a wave at all? So we can say it is just for the namesake. Wave does not exist, wave is mithya. And this mithya wave, we have taken it as real, identified with that wave, and we are going away from the source, that is water, and we are now tossing up and down like waves. So this is a mistake of identification. So this idea we are trying to understand here, that first of all, there was only a pure consciousness. But the pure consciousness is in the individual, where individual is with avidya. Therefore, the pure consciousness associated with avidya gives rise to a thought. The thought form belongs to avidya, and the contents of that thought form belongs to consciousness. Or we can see the thought with a shine, thought without a shine, if it is turbulent, and thought itself without any light, if it is tamasic. So depending upon the gunas or the attributes of the thought, whether sattvic, rajasic or tamasic, the shine of consciousness will depend. And therefore, in our life, only when the mind is sattvic, there will be a shine of consciousness. Not all the time. Whereas in Hiranyagarbha or creator, it is continuously shining. It is total intelligence or total effulgence, because it is a sattvic mind. Whereas in the individual case, their mind is not all the time sattvic. Very rarely it is sattvic. Whenever it is sattvic, there is a shine of consciousness, because only in the sattvic medium the consciousness shines. Rajasic and tamasic mediums are disqualified for consciousness. So it is like a turbulent water surface. The reflection will dance and will disappear. And in the case of tamas, it is like a reflection in a black ink. In that ink, there may be some shining figure, but it will not be clear for us. So tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic, these are the three modes of mind, and only when the mind becomes sattvic that we can experience the shine of consciousness. This being the case, the seeker has to make his mind sattvic. Now that is this sadhana. Therefore, long meditations and all that help us get away from and rule over the rajas and tamas and make our mind predominantly sattvic. Then it becomes sattvic. So this predominantly sattvic and sattvic, we are referred to the level of creator and the level of total intelligence, Maharloka. I hope that you are with me. I am only revising the portions. I have not taken any new point today because this being a very important portion through which we are going, and it may be possible that if we are very sharp in our reflections, trying to understand the status at that particular level, then we don't have to do that exercise necessarily. As a rule, everybody is told to meditate, all right. And its early effects of mental concentration, purity, etc. are there in Upasana, no doubt. But the further, it is a very deep and close reflection on these statements of the Shruti or the teacher that helps us take near the goal. So it just by a thinking process itself, Vastu Siddhir Vicharena, says Viveka Chudamani. Sadvastu Siddhi, that means the reaching the level of truth or reality is possible only through Vichara, the path of inquiry. We have to continuously inquire, meaning closely follow these statements given in the scriptures or by the teacher. So here also, in our attempt, we tried to closely follow up these statements of our teacher. Now in the fourth paragraph, we say, fifth paragraph, we have seen last statement, the wise man reaches these and also that which is beyond. So here we have to understand, wise man reaches AUM, results of AUM, results of combined Om, and beyond means he feels the sense of silence. That is the beauty of it. So with the help of this, we tried to discuss this statement, which is beyond. What is beyond the sound is silence. AUM, all are sound, whether you chant it isolatedly or collectively, it is all sound only. It is finite because the sound has a beginning and sound has an end. Whereas when they contemplate upon Om as sound followed by the silence, then they become aware of the silence through sound. Because all through they were contemplating on AUM individually, collectively, but then they understood that this sound rises from silence and ends in silence. And naturally, it is supported in between by silence only. Only in silence you can hear the sound. So, silence being all the time eternally existing, whereas in the silence, the sound rises, the sound falls. So the rising of the sound and falling of the sound has a beginning and an end. Therefore, all results of contemplation upon AUM are finite and mortal. Wise man is not interested in finite. He gathers all that and goes beyond. Goes beyond in a sense. He chants Om, pursues Om through all its levels, and along with the Om chanting, he lands into the silence and becomes awareful of silence. Once he becomes awareful of silence, he gets the substratum. And once he knows the substratum, thereafterwards, he has a full control over the sound. Because basically rooted in silence, he can dictate the sound. Very important statement. And this is the reflection based on the 7th paragraph, where it is said, to see the post, one has to see through and through the ghost. In this sense, it is said here that those who have realized the Om completely means sound plus silence, total. Those who have completely, as represented by its silent amatra aspect, gain a mastery and freedom, kingship and control, proprietorship and power over the world of mortals. The world of mortals are Bhurloka, Bhuvarloka, and Swarloka. All these three lokas are continuously created and continuously destroyed. So he gets a control over that. When he becomes aware of the silence, which is all pervading, which is the basis, the start and end of sound, and which is also a support for the sound, sustenance for the sound, then they have got this control over the world of mortals. Here the wording used is, the knower of Om, apart from the above, also becomes consciousness itself. It is a further level. When he has established in silence, silence is otherwise known as consciousness. Consciousness is silence, and consciousness becomes the disturbance through sound. Sound is nothing but the silence in manifest, and sound itself is going back to become silence. Therefore, these are the two states of the same thing. Ocean and the waves. Ocean by itself is serene and silent and is really the treasure house of all gems, etc. Whereas the waves have a beginning and end, they are endless waves and they are all mortal waves. Nothing of them survives. So, the ocean manifests itself in the form of waves and plays the game. He's sporting. The wave is a sport of the ocean as manifest, and ocean is the waves going back to their source as silence. If this is properly understood, then we are closely pursuing the sound has reached me to the silence. Then I become aware of the silence. Then I found that from silence only the sound rises. Because of the sound, silence only the sound is sustained. And unto the silence only the sound merges back. Therefore, silence is the substratum and support for the sound. This we have to understand. Then, this is the relationship of silence and sound. Sound is nothing but the silence manifest. And silence is nothing but the sound going back to become unmanifest. Therefore, it is one and the same stuff. Sometimes becomes manifest and perishable, and the same goes back to become imperishable, silent. Now, this is the game of consciousness. Consciousness pure is silence. But when consciousness with sankalpa, the thought, the shine continues, but the thought becomes predominant. This thought gives rise to a duality, and duality to multiplicity, and thus the consciousness itself, from its own level of silence, has gone down to the level of names and forms, which is all disturbance. So this silence becoming a disturbance, a peaceful ocean becoming a turbulent waves, this is all a play game, it is said. And who has played, etc., is not in the scope at present. But we have to see in me itself, the consciousness itself becomes a thought. Thought itself gives rise to another thought. And then there is a duality like a subject and object, experiencer and experience. And this duality gives rise to several thoughts or several objects. So likewise, from one consciousness, it becomes two. From two, it becomes many. This is the game. Therefore, origin of all this world of the mortals, the world of names and forms, is pure consciousness. So pure consciousness has a turbulence, as a finitude, as a mortality. We know it very well. But we do not know that this is the appearance of consciousness in name and form, and this appearance is perishable, whereas the contents of that is not perishable, but the appearance of names and forms, they will continuously created and destroyed. One who has known his nature to be pure consciousness will not get afraid of the rise and fall of various objects, etc. And he will have a full control over that. This is what we have already read through. And here we are reading that finally he becomes pure consciousness. See the levels. Earlier he was consciousness as silence and consciousness as sound. Consciousness as sound is perishable. Consciousness as silence is substratum and support for the sound. This is all, like switching on and off. The consciousness becoming names and forms and going back to become pure consciousness. This is a game going on, and this is the game of Maya going on, as even the pure consciousness is nothing but Maya. So this game of Maya as pure consciousness and Trigunatmika Maya, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, etc., as the one who is responsible for the multiplicity of the creation. All these are different appearances of Maya only. But to see the origin of this as pure consciousness is important, because pure consciousness is the nature of Jiva. Very important arrival of a point that Jiva's original nature is pure consciousness. Now, when he has seen the consciousness as silence and consciousness as sound, going back, a level he must reach where he will discover that he is pure consciousness. The moment he discovers, that is what is indicated in the 7th paragraph, that the knower of Om, apart from the above, also becomes consciousness. Consciousness itself. Now this is the statement, Swamiji's statement on this, and we have discussed just now on that. So this is very important. Now he says, it is not only these that he gains, but that which is beyond. Again the beyond is used. First beyond we have seen that from sound to reach silence. Silence is beyond the sound. We have seen this. And now we are seeing another beyond. When you give, the statement is, the knower of Om, apart from the above, also becomes consciousness itself, and as such, it is not only these that he gains, but that which is beyond. When you give, and then the example is of gold and necklace is given. So now, consciousness, one becomes consciousness, and beyond, when you say, you reach the Brahman, which is material cause for the entire universe. At this moment, you have become pure consciousness. Now, the pure consciousness you have become by continuously meditating upon sound and silence, sound and silence, seeing the silence pervading in and through sound, before, during, and after sound, and seeing that silence, you have become silence. And silence is another term for pure consciousness. So you become pure consciousness itself. Now this is one level reach. Last but one level reach is that your nature is pure consciousness. Now going beyond this is to realize that I am also the Brahman, which is the material cause of the universe. And next to that, I am also the pure consciousness, the Brahman as existence and pure consciousness as knowledge. They are inseparable. Therefore, it is called as Satchit Atma. Now, this Atma is material cause as well as instrumental, the efficient cause as well. Both. Consciousness is the efficient cause of the world, and existence is the material cause of the world. Therefore, existence consciousness is one self. This is nature, and this is going beyond again. So, the existence is beyond the beyond, Swamiji's words, and consciousness is beyond the obvious. What is obvious is the world around us, which we meet every day. What is beyond the obvious is consciousness. What is beyond the beyond? The absolute existence. The existence eternal and consciousness infinite are not two, but they are one. Sat is Chit, Chit is Sat. Sat without Chit is inert like a stone. Chit without Sat is just imagination, having no truthful content. So this when we see, the Chid Atma is the only reality for this world. So one has to go through the first three perishable realms, reach the level of creator, which is total mind. In us, it is our individual mind, and mind being essentially sattvic. At present, though it is associated with rajas or prana force, the mind, when it becomes sattvic, it will shine forth with consciousness. Once your attention goes to this shine behind the thought, Hiranyagarbha, and concentrate on the light aspect in spite of thought, we are seeing the thought, but there is a shine, Hiranyagarbha, within. You know, like like a glowworm. A glowworm, you see, now and then it flashes from inside. In the villages, you find a lot of glowworms, and you can see them like twinkling now and then. In fact, this idea, Hiranyagarbha, is best suited here. Only in case of Hiranyagarbha, it is not blinking, it is not fluctuating, it is a continuous shine. And in case of individual, human being, it is flickering. Why it is flickering? Because whenever the mind becomes sattvic, there will be a shine of consciousness. When mind becomes rajasic and tamasic, it will disappear. Therefore, this is called a shine of consciousness in the sattvic mind. One of the branch of Buddhism is Kshanika Vijnana Vada. Vijnana is Vijnanamaya Kosha in the intellect. There is now and then a shine, which is called Kshanika Vijnana. Kshanika means it's a momentary shine in the intellect. Whenever the intellect is sattvic, it shines. Of course, that is not sufficient theory to support the ultimate reality. But when the Upasaka contemplates upon the shine in the intellect, or he thereby Upasana, he reaches the totality, becomes one with the total mind, which is a continuous shine called as Hiranyagarbha, and thus he becomes conscious of a sattvic mind, and thereafterwards he cultivates sattva and see that his mind becomes predominantly sattvic. So likewise, we have taken the guidance from Swamiji's comments, and now this is our revisional portion. You will find every time, because I don't repeat what I have said last time, I try to present, I reflect in a different approach to the same point, and therefore this time I have presented a slightly a different approach, so that you don't think it is the same thing being said, but actually it is only the revisional portion, and we are at the close of 7th paragraph. This is our revision portion. So giving a necklace to your friend or daughter, whoever it is, yeah, it's a gold also is as well given. So now what is gold? Gold is the material cause. So material cause, and necklace is name and form. When a gold is cast into a particular form, then it is called necklace. When it is cast into another form, it is called a bangle, earring. Whatever it is, it will depend on name and form will change, the gold will not change. So when you want to give gold, it is in the form of ornament. Normally, others we are not considering others, those who are having chips of gold, etc. So that is not the consideration. But here what we are saying, when we want to give somebody gold, we give it in the form of ornament. So he enjoys the name and form also, and he has the value of that also as gold. Similarly, the Brahman here has become name and form. Brahman is the material cause, and that there is name and form. Who knows? I know. So my nature is consciousness, and the nature of my surrounding is existence. So the eternal existence outside assumes the names and forms of the world, and the consciousness within reflects in my intellect, becomes the intelligence, and the light of intelligence illumines the thoughts, the resolves in the mind, and the outer objects in perception. All these Sat and Chit are going on like this, a game. What I have to see now is, as an individual spiritual seeker, I have to ascend these steps, step by step exercise, reach the first level of total intelligence, or I reach the intelligence in my intellect, where I appreciate that there is a light, in the light of which I can see my thoughts. I become conscious of thoughts, feelings, perception, etc. So this coming to this intelligence is the link between the lower three, body, mind, intellect, and the higher three, Satchidananda. This is link. What is that link? Intelligence of the intellect. So this becomes a link. Likewise, then in this process, I will myself become the pure consciousness. This is the next level we have seen. And the last level is going beyond, is I will myself becomes the Brahman as well. So Brahman and consciousness are not two things. Sat and Chit, existence and knowledge, they are one as Atman, or the self. I become the self. So to become the self is the be all and end all of spiritual sadhana. Thereafterwards, that self is Brahman will be revealed to us. We don't have to do anything for that. But to reach this level is important. Two important levels. One is to reach the level of pure consciousness that I am, or my nature. My nature is pure consciousness, and I am the self, the existence knowledge. So these two levels are to be reached. And Swamiji has wound up by giving an example of necklace and gold. Now we are coming to the new portion, the 8th paragraph. Herein we have one of the greatest definition of infinite truth couched in the language of negation, but seemingly sounding as though it is a direct scientific definition. It is said here that the wise one comes to experience that which is undecaying, ajaram, deathless, amrutam, fearless, abhayam, and supreme, param. Now only four are given, and they were said to be five. What is the fifth one? Oh, fifth one is the first one, and that first one is silence. It is tat vidvanyat tat shantam first, then it is ajaram, undecaying, then amrutam, undying, then abhayam, fearless, and then lastly param, the supreme. So these are the five, out of which we have reached the silence, that is otherwise known as consciousness. When I become consciousness up to this level, and the wise one transcends this level and goes beyond the beyond, and the experience that he has there is purposely described in the language of the mortals. Because if it is said totally in its own language, we will not understand. Now we are acquainted with something, and the absence of that thing is considered as the gains in this particular seeking. So here it is that we are told in the 8th paragraph. We have read this already. So we have been, we have one of the greatest definitions of the infinite truth. Infinite truth means consciousness, existence. Truth stands for eternal existence. Infinite stands for infinite consciousness. So Satchit are covered in these two terms. Swamiji has used such a language which will cover everything. So when it is said that infinite truth, infinite stands for consciousness, truth stands for existence, right? Couched in the language of the negation. Language of negation means actually what it is not. It is not fear, therefore fearless. It is not mortality, therefore it is immortal. So this is the language of negation, because this is the only language that Jiva knows. Jiva knows that he is mortal, he is born and is bound to die. That's what the language he knows. And there is a fear also with him right from the birth onwards. We have discussed this earlier also. So it is only introduced, the paragraph only introduced to us that the final experience of this reality or the truth is described in 5 terms, which are in with which we are acquainted. In terms of our acquainted words or feelings, the final experience is described. Therefore, it is called as negative. It is not positively said what we will be experiencing then, but it is described in the present reference. At present, what we are, then this will be absent there. At present, we are fearful, then that is the state reached is fearless. So likewise, in the language of the Jiva, it is these 5 terms are used. And these 5 terms we have to keep it in mind as vidvanyatat shantam ajaram amrutam abhayam paramcha. These are the 5 terms, important. They are negatively defined. The 9th paragraph will introduce in details about these 5 terms. These terms are used with a special technical dexterity. From the finite, the infinite can only be pointed out. From the infinite, the finite cannot even be pointed out. This is the first statement. Finite and infinite, their relationship from the standpoint of the finite, infinite can be indicated to the person. What is the kind of infinite that we are going to reach or is taken as goal? Whereas from the standpoint of the infinite, the finite doesn't exist at all. Therefore, how can it be pointed out? So this is the first statement, important statement. From the infinite, the finite cannot even be pointed out. The great rishis, having experienced the infinite, have to explain it to us who are living the seeming realities of the finite. The word terms are very good and important. Seeming realities of the finite. There is no reality at all. It is seeming reality of the finite. And if they were to make us understand it, they have to talk to us about it in our language of delusion. This is another term, the language of our delusion. We are living in the world of delusion. And if that final truth or reality has to be described, one who experiences that, if he were to describe about his experience, he will have to talk in terms of what we know here. What we know, with reference to that, you tell me what is your experience of the infinite. So this is the idea here. Now, he says further, the great rishis having experienced the infinite have to explain it to us who are living in the seeming realities of the finite. And if they were to make us understand it, they have to talk to us about it in our language of delusion. In our delusory existence, we generally experience 5 great modifications during our life: birth, growth, decay, disease, and death. An ordinary mortal life, uh, an ordinary mortal life is a round of these agonizing fears, fates, and the consequent fears. If it is tears, I suggest correction as fears. If it is printed as tears, it should be read as fears. Because abhayam is the word used there, so fear is the word. Now Swamiji is describing how fear is pervading all through our life. Fear. Therefore, consequent fears. Walking through the bylanes of ignorance, we slip at every step on the rocky surface, made specially slippery with the fears of those who have walked over them before us. Here again, the tear should be read as fear. See, this description is like a metaphor. It's compared a slippery stone, etc. So that all those earlier persons who have walked through has also failed, slipped from that, and got destroyed. So similarly, these people have also assumed that our forefathers have also born and died. Similarly, we are also born already, now we are going to die. Now this kind of bylane of ignorance, when you are in the gully, you don't know what's going on in Delhi. Likewise, when you are in the bylane of ignorance, you don't know what is consciousness, what is knowledge, and what is the truth, etc. You are far away from that. So, Swamiji uses a term, the bylane of ignorance. And in that bylane of ignorance, it is ensured that you remain in that bylane only. How it is ensured? The rocky ground and the slippery ground, etc. All that description. Therefore, there is a fear. At every step, there is a fear. This point of fear we have already discussed earlier, that when the individual, a child is born, immediately, as unfoldment as also in the early chapters it is described, due to the light and the vast atmospheric pressure, etc., it gets scared. Earlier it was in a very congested space. trying to maintain itself. Suddenly it comes into the open space, and with that atmospheric pressure and the light, etc., it gets scared. So at the moment of birth itself, there is a scare, fear. Then somebody tests honey to that child, and then the fellow says, ah, now it is all right. So earlier it was fearful, now it is all right. With this, the fellow goes, continues. Whenever there is a fear, he tries to see some counterbalance by which he will try to escape the sense of fear. But he is not really free from the fear. This is important. Therefore, this fearful child grows with fear. So if there is suddenly a big noise, it will get scared. If there is suddenly something else happens, immediately it is disturbed. So the fear follows us continuously. We are scared of our own security, our own life, and various things that we provide, thinking that this is a very foolproof security. Our bank balance, our social status, name and fame, popularity, all this gain means we are secured. That means we feel like that. But when, as the time proceeds, when one by one it starts falling off, for a child, mother is the most security. It cannot afford to see the mother off its vision. So always it wants the mother in front. And later on, it understands that father is also our support. Because mother, the father fetches some money, etc., and various support. And therefore, then the mother is able to cook at home. So both are important for the child. Then later on, it understands that the teacher in the school is the support for it. This is all protection against the sense of fear. Then after teacher, then he grows young, and then he feels the wife is the source of my happiness, so wife is the support. Before that, money is the support. And all the such things, he goes on having these supports on which he depends, trying to feel his freedom from a sense of fear. He goes on doing that. Then after some times, as the time advances, the first support drops. The mother, the father, the teacher, the elders, all those things, when again this fear props up again, and the fellow is again scared. It is at such moments that the teacher appears and says, hey, you are the support for the whole universe, and you are seeking supports like this, a fool. So this kind of delusion we are living, this is a delusionary life we are living, in which fear is one of the characteristics. And here we are promised that the experience of the final reality or truth is abhayam, is the last but one word, abhayam. It is fearless. There is no sense of fear at all. So this is one of the things, fear. Walking through the violence, etc., we have seen this. This being the common experience of every thinking seeker, the rishis have to explain the infinite, the goal of life, to their disciples as a plane of existence wherein they will not have any of these sorrows. Any of these sorrows. The first one is ajaram, the decaying. When one becomes start growing old, there is a scare, there is a fear. So now he slowly he loses his strength, and he has to depend on others. He has to bend on his staff. So many things happen, and this is the great fear. So long as the nerves are tight and muscles are hard, the boy is very enthusiastic and he can do anything in this world. But slowly, when the powers start, waning, and then he feels, he approaches the old age, he gets scared. This is the first fear. Therefore, it is described here that final experience as ajaram, undecaying experience. The next one is amrutam. the old age leads to the death. So finally, the old man dies. The child is born and the old man dies. This is the reality. But the old man, so the old age leads to the death. Death is mortality. And therefore, the experience described here is of immortality. So this is Amrutam. And Abhayam we have just now seen, the fear. Right from birth onwards, the child picks up fear of insecurity and trying to cover the fear, he tries to raise the supports for his stay, for his secured stay, and thus he goes on collecting around him the various support, but finally finds that by as the time passes, the one by one the supports also start dropping, and then the fear continues till death. Now, this experience is described here as abhayam. Now, there is a statement in Vedanta, Dvaitat bhayam. The cause for fear is a sense of duality. When one alone is, where is the question of fear? But when second comes, the second conditions the first, and first conditions the second. And there is always a sense of limitations considered. So, this sense of duality it is that is the main cause for fear. Dvaitat bhayam. This is a statement. So here we can see that moment Maya has created the duality, you and I make you as an object of my perception and interaction. I am the subject, you are the object. This is the duality. I am the experiencer, you are the experienced. This kind of duality is the trick of Maya, and it pulls you into duality. Then it starts with fear, the insecurity, and all that follows. You have already considered yourself to be physical body, and now you are suffering all the limitations due to physical body, due to the vagaries of the mind, and due to the changing opinions and understanding of the intellect. There's all things make you all the more insecure and fearful. So all these terms are defined negatively because we are now accustomed to these negativities. This is our world of delusion. Swamiji has clearly defined our world of delusion. The world of delusion is really interesting. We may not have time to elaborate, but the first of all, the thought itself is mithya. We are seeing the starting point is consciousness associated with avidya gives rise to intellect or thought. Likewise, the flowers and the thread, when flowers strung together by the thread, a garland like third thing appears in the picture. Now, where is garland? If you try to point out the garland, you will be either pointing out the thread or the flowers. There is nothing like garland. Garland is for namesake, and therefore it is called mithya. Similarly, out of the knowledge and ignorance, consciousness and avidya, etc., from knowledge and ignorance rises the thought. Now, thought is nothing but consciousness plus ignorance. Now, thought is appears to be a third thing. It is not a third thing at all. It is mithya. Therefore, the first thought itself is mithya. Then the jiva himself, individual, himself is a reflection in the intellect. Therefore, reflection is always mithya. We know that. But we have taken it as satyam. We have considered individual as most important and the real. Therefore, the mithya is taken as real. Our world of delusion starts. We have started our jiva itself, which is a delusion, which is only reflection. Reflection cannot be considered as real. It is apparent, but we have taken it as real. I, the individual. Then we have seen all further things like thoughts, mind, intellect, ego, etc. All these thoughts are delusion. Then these thoughts project out as the world of names and forms. Therefore, they are also delusion. We are going through such portions in the camp where how the appearance of the world is delusion, whereas the truth is it is Brahman. The appearance of the ghost on the post is delusion. So we are living a life of delusion. And if we are to told, now seeker is not the one who is free from all this. He is already, only the difference between others and the seekers is that he is aware of his limitations, whereas the others have considered limitations as reality. That's the big difference. The seeker has said that this he is aware of these limitations and they are unbearable for him. And when the scripture says that you can be free from all this sense of limitation, you are limitlessness, then naturally the seeker is interested in the seeking. So this idea is put up in the concluding 8th and 9th paras. We have to continue this discussion. Being a very subtle portions, we need to appreciate the levels of our growth or levels of our progress in spirituality, how we are able to cover the first, the Purloka, then Bhuvarloka, then Swarloka, individually, collectively, we reach the sense of effulgence or intelligence, then how we transcend it, likewise, and then apply it to our individuality, the body, the mind, the intellect, the intelligence in the intellect, fourth level. Intelligence in the intellect is the link between the lower three, body, mind, intellect, and higher three, the Satchit and Ananda. So Ananda was the one which we say at Janoloka, Tapoloka is Chinmaya, and Satyaloka is Sat. So Satchidananda, the nature of Atman, and the lower three as Bhurloka, as the perishable field of experiences. They are connected by the link in between. All this we have to repeatedly reflect upon and clear these levels of progress so that we will come to know that how we have fallen. The moment we know the fall, and it is all imaginary, mind you, it is not the actual fall. By thought only we have fallen. So by reflection, we can fall back and we will realize that before even we started a journey, in Swamiji's words, we have already reached the destination. Suddenly he will realize this is something great and we need further reflection. We'll do that next time. Shobha, you are asking something?
Yes, sir. Because we said that thought is mithya.
Ah,
So we in the Vivek Chudamani we said Vastu Siddhir Vicharena. So even if it is mithya, it is helpful to take you to the destination. So
yes,
mithya has to be
Mithya.
initially till you, though it is mithya, it has to be considered as mithya, but you have to make use of mithya to reach to destination.
Ah. So now here it is that a Mithya thought is destroyed by another Mithya thought. That is the idea. When the thought itself is gone, whether the destroying thought or destroyed thought, when both are gone, then what remains is only pure consciousness.
That is not mithya.
So,
That is the reality.
that is the reality. But how to reach the reality?
Through
In
mithya thing only.
so now, therefore, that is the idea basically.
Uh,
In consciousness, there is no thought.
yes.
Without consciousness, there is no thought. Now, thought is the only thing. So, we have to raise a counter thought which will interact with this thought, and both of them will go. This is what Nirmali seed we have seen purifying the water. See, we are not creating anything. A thought
But
will not.
even if it is a sattvic thought, or even if it is a thought of the self, ultimately it is a thought only.
Yes. So, sattva is capable of overpowering and destroying the ill effects of rajas and tamas.
Yes.
So when that sattva, after performing this job of overruling the tamas and rajas, itself will also have to go. The story of three dacoits looting the traveler, the first one wants to kill him, the tamas. The second one wants to tie him to the tree, the rajas. And the sattva fellow, he says, okay, where you have to go? They have already looted him now. Now what they will do with that person there tied and bound? So he comes back and he asks, where you want to go? So he says, okay, I want to go to that village, my hometown. So okay, I will reach you. So he goes to the boundary of that village and says, this is your village. So the fellow feels very grateful. He says, sir, why don't you come? You have saved my life. Why don't you come have a cup of tea with me and all that? So he said, sorry, we can't cross this. And he goes back to the jungles. So now this sattva is also a dacoit. All the three gunas are dacoits. Only tamasic is right, wants to kill it on the spot. Rajas ties and binds us with the sense of attachment. And sattva takes us away from all that. So when he has saved us from rajas and tamas, sattva has led us to the boundaries of our hometown. But sattva cannot enter the hometown, my hometown. Therefore, my hometown is sattvatita. It is trans sattva. It is beyond sattva. It is not even sattva. But a sattvic thought will first destroy all the lower thoughts, and then it will lead us to the boundary of that and retrace. It cannot enter to the in my home. So that was the idea.
Thank you.
In all other thoughts, the
Hmm.
thought is a link between subject and object. बरोबर है? But in the thought of the self, the thought of the self only brings about the union, the knower and the known. There is no separate knowing. Knowing is only unity. There is no knowing action which is separate. ह्याच्यामध्ये. So the thought of the self versus all other thoughts, ह्याच्यामध्ये फरक नाही आहे का?
That is the difference we are discussing, that all other thoughts are disturbing thoughts, whereas this thought is pacifying thought. When the pacifying thought has kept all other thoughts, destroyed all other thoughts, then even pacifying thoughts will have to quit. It has done its job. So this Aham Brahmasmi Vritti is also a thought, but this thought will destroy all other Vishaya Vrittis. Having destroyed those Vishaya Vrittis, this wave also, this Vritti also will subside. Then what remains is the absolute truth. So what this is the process, this is done, we are doing it in our normal parlance also. This kind of that, it is a counteract basically.
In earlier discussion, you said that the upasana of Om leads us to Surya Loka, up to Surya Loka. So this is the only upasana which actually gives the result up to that level, or are there any other upasanas? So it is an important upasana of Om.
Upasana is indispensable, first of all. Everyone has to start with upasana, because that is the lower level which one has to achieve, without which he has no access to the higher world. That is first thing. So upasana, with upasana we get certain gains, and these gains when capitalized further can lead us to the higher levels. Therefore the upasana is a must for that. Now what was your question in this?
Only Om Upasana is available for us to achieve this.
No, in Vedanta, in Vedanta, Om is the only upasya introduced, nothing else. There is no other deity. In Pauranic level, in Pauranic areas, there are several deities. You can choose Ishta Devata. There is nothing like Ishta Devata. The Om itself is a great discovery out of the years of R&D by Rishis, and they have discovered Om as a sound without any meaning, a pure sound without any modification, and that has become the symbol for the lower Brahman as well as higher Brahman. Therefore, for Vedantic seeker, Om is the only upasya, and for any other seeker following the Puranic guidance, for them he can choose the Ishta Devata, whatever is there.
Okay. Sir, another small question. Whether pure conscious is also Maya or it
Yes.
is I see.
Is a para and apara, paravidya, aparavidya. Paravidya is Maya, which is otherwise known as pure consciousness. And Aparavidya is Trigunatmika Maya, which gives rise to the creation. Both of them. This is, we have discussed several times in 15th chapter of Gita. Dva vimau purushau loke ksharaschaksharameva cha ksharas sarvani bhutani kutastho kshara uchyate. This akshara, self within, kutastha atma, is a para prakriti, and the other one is apara prakriti. Ksharas sarvani bhutani kutastho kshara uchyate. And uttama purushastu anyaha. Purushottama is something above both the Trigunatmika Maya or Ashtada Prakriti and the Mula Prakriti or pure consciousness. Beyond both these is what is called as Purushottama. So this Maya is called of two types. One is called as Para and Apara. Para is called pure consciousness. Apara is called the lower Prakriti, higher Prakriti and lower Prakriti, higher nature, lower nature. And the person is something above both. At present, he is identified with the pure consciousness, but later on he finds himself above both the Para as well as Apara. Actually, we are going to the concluding portions of this Upanishad, and his last but one question is being concluded, and one should be very careful about it. We need more reflections, so that these questions are very preliminary questions. What kind of upasana and upasaka, etc. Upasya. Here we are now reaching what a Vedantic seeker performing the Om Upasana will reach, where he will reach. So according to his understanding of Om, Om stands for Parabrahma as well as Aparabrahma. So according to his capacity, the Aparabrahma is reached through Upasana, whereas the Parabrahma is the deeper contemplation and is accessible only for that. So this being our area is very clear, we cannot go beyond this area for that. So question should be directly related to the topics that we are discussing. So we have now covered the 8th paragraph and we have entered into the 9th paragraph. So we'll discuss the details next time. Yasya prasadadahameva vishnuhu Mayyeva sarvam parikalpitancha Itham vijanami sadatmarupam Tasyangri padmam pranatosmi nityam Tasyangri padmam pranatosmi nityam Om Shri Chinmaya Sadgurave Namaha. Thank you.